Subscribe for more stories and show your support by giving this video a thumbs up. Rio and the Great Sky Compass, the journey of the grey wings. In the Great Salt Lake, the whitest, flattest, and brightest mirror of the world, life flowed at a calm rhythm. This was a magical place where the sky descended to the earth, and the horizon line disappeared. Right in the middle of this infinite whiteness lived a small flamingo named Rio. Rio had a big problem: his color. The adults around him, his mother Maya, his father, and the legendary leader of the flock, Captain Wing, all had magnificent coral pink feathers, the color of the sunset. But Rio? He was grey from head to toe. It was as if someone had thrown him down a chimney, an ash-colored, dusty, and matte grey. "When will I shine like you, Mom?" he would ask every morning, looking at his reflection in the water. His mother, Maya, would smile and stroke his head with her beak. "Be patient, Rio. Pink is not just a color. It is the reward of a story. When you complete the great journey, when you eat the shrimps of the south, and when you dance with the wind, you too will find your color." The great journey. Rio would get excited when he heard these words. But he was also afraid. Because when adults spoke of migration, their voices always turned serious. The season was changing. The warm water of the Great Salt Lake had given way to a freezing cold. The wind was no longer caressing. It was biting. One morning, the flock's leader, Captain Wing, gathered everyone. He was so old and experienced that the tips of his pink feathers had turned white, the color of wisdom. "Listen, my brothers and sisters," said Captain Wing. "The north wind has brought the news. Winter will be harsh this year. We must set off before the waters freeze. Tomorrow at dawn, the great journey begins. Our destination, the turquoise lagoons." A ripple went through the flock. The sound of thousands of flamingos flapping their wings at the same time sounded like thunderous applause. Rio's best friend, Ash, came up to him. Ash was grey like his name implied, but he was a bit clumsy. His long legs kept getting tangled. "Did you hear that, Rio?" Ash said, shivering. "We're going to fly thousands of kilometers. What if my wings fall off? What if I fall asleep in the air?" "Don't be afraid, Ash," said Rio, even though he was scared himself. "We are a team. If one of us falls, the other picks him up." The next morning, while the sky was still navy blue, the lake had turned into a giant airport. Preparations were being made for the V formation flight. The strongest would fly in the front, the elderly in the back, and the young ones like Rio and Ash in the middle to be protected from the wind. "Get ready," came the command from Captain Wing. First, hundreds of feet began to run in the water, splash, 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 splash. Then, giant wings opened. And that magnificent moment occurred. Thousands of flamingos took off at the same time. Rio felt gravity slipping away from his feet. The snow-white lake below remained like a tiny puddle of milk. They were in the sky. The cold air hit his face, but the air current created by the flock carried him. He adapted to the flapping of his uncle in front of him. 1, 2, glide. 1, 2, glide. It was like a dance. A ballet of the sky. They flew for days. Yellow plains, green forests, and winding rivers passed beneath them. But then, a massive wall appeared before them, the Smoky Mountains. The peaks of the mountains were snowy and touched the clouds. Captain Wing shouted, "Ascend! Higher!" The air had thinned. Rio was struggling to breathe. His wings felt as heavy as lead. Ash was right beside him. "I can't do it, Rio. It's too steep," he moaned. His speed was dropping. Rio looked at his friend. "Look at me, Ash. Don't look down. Just focus on my tail. Think of it as if I'm pulling you with an invisible rope." As they passed over the peaks of the mountains, they heard the scream of a giant eagle. But the flamingos were so numerous and tightly packed that the eagle didn't dare approach. Only the cold. That freezing mountain chill was seeping between their feathers. Just as they crossed the summit, they began to glide downward. A wave of warm air hit their faces. They had succeeded. They had overcome the toughest obstacle. On the fourth night, a strange sight appeared below. It looked as if the stars in the sky had spilled onto the earth. Millions of yellow and white lights were shining. This was a massive metropolis. For young flamingos, city lights were very dangerous, because they could mistake these lights for the reflection of stars and lose their way. There was confusion in the middle of the flock. Some young birds began to descend toward the lights. Ash joined them. "Hey! Look there! The stars are below, we are landing in the water," said Ash, deviating from his course. Rio remembered his mother Maya's warning, "The lights of humans are fake. The true compass is in your heart and in the sky." Rio broke rank and chased after Ash. "Ash, stop! That's not water. That's a city." Ash was moving toward a bright stadium light as if under a spell. Rio sped up with his last bit of strength, got in front of Ash, and gently bumped him with his wing. "Look up!" shouted Rio. "The real moon is above." Ash shook himself. He heard the noise below, the car horns. He snapped out of it with fear. "Oh, Rio! I almost got lost in those fake lights." The two friends, wing to wing, rose again and returned to Captain Wing's safe route. On the 10th day of the journey, the weather changed suddenly. The sky turned purple. A humid and angry wind coming from the ocean began to scatter the flock. This was a major storm. Although Captain Wing shouted, "Hold formation! Don't get separated," the sound of the wind drowned him out. A lightning bolt flashed, boom! Rio lost sight of his uncle in front of him. He couldn't see Ash beside him. Raindrops were falling like stones. Rio suddenly found himself all alone in a dark void. The wind was tossing him around like a leaf. He was spinning, tumbling, unable to find his direction. "Mom! Dad!" he shouted, but his voice was lost in the wind. The fear was worse than the cold. Rio folded his wings and let himself drop. Maybe he could find a place to shelter on the ground. He fell into a reedy area. He was wet, tired, and alone. His grey feathers were covered in mud. He took shelter under a rock, buried his head under his wings, and began to cry. "I will never make it. I will never be pink." When morning came, the storm had subsided, but the sky was still overcast. Rio came out of his hiding place. There was no one around. Not Maya, not Ash, not Captain Wing. There were only strange birds and trees he didn't recognize. "What do I do now?" he thought. "I don't know the way." Just then, he felt a strange sensation in the center of his chest. A pulling sensation. It was as if an invisible magnetic rope was pulling him in a specific direction. His mother's words came to his mind, "The true compass is in your heart." Rio closed his eyes. He listened to the wind. He analyzed the scent coming to his beak. This scent was the smell of salt water and moss. And this scent was coming from the same direction as that pulling feeling inside him. "South," whispered Rio. "The turquoise lagoons are that way." He conquered his fear. He took off alone. His wings ached, but trusting that feeling inside, he began to fly. He flew for an hour, he flew for 2 hours. And then, in the distance, he saw a pink cloud moving in the sky. No, that wasn't a cloud. That was his flock. Rio flapped his wings with all his might. "Hey! I'm here!" The birds in the flock noticed him. Ash darted from the back of the flock and came towards him. "Rio? You're alive!" The two friends bumped into each other gently in the air. This was their way of hugging, and screamed with joy. His mother Maya and his father came to his side immediately. Maya checked him with her beak. "We were so scared, Rio, so scared." "Don't be afraid, Mom," said Rio, his voice now sounding deeper and more confident. "I found the way. I used the compass in my heart." Captain Wing glided next to Rio. "The young bird who got lost in the storm and found the flock alone," said the old leader. "This is the mark of a true traveler." And finally, the awaited view appeared on the horizon. The turquoise lagoons. The color of the water wasn't white like the Great Salt Lake, it was a clear turquoise like glass. The surroundings were full of palm trees. The air was warm and smelled of sweet flowers. The flock descended in a great spiral. The sound they made when they landed on the water, splash, was the most relaxing sound in the world. The water was warm. And inside the water was full of delicious, tiny shrimps. Everyone began the feast. Rio was so hungry that he thought this was the best meal he had ever eaten in his life. Ash said with his mouth full, "It was worth it. It was worth those mountains, that storm." Months passed. They stayed in the lagoon throughout the winter. Rio swam a lot, flew a lot, and ate those delicious shrimps. One morning, while looking at the still water of the lagoon, he noticed something. His reflection in the water. It was no longer gray. The tips of his wings had turned a sweet pink, like the sunrise. Coral-colored halos had formed on his neck and chest. He was no longer the gray prince. He had become a true flamingo, worthy of his name, Rio. His mother Maya came to his side. She looked at her son's bright, new feathers. "I told you," she said. "Pink is not just a color. It is the reward of the journey. You earned this color." Rio spread his wings. He was shining brightly. He had grown up now. Not just his body, but his soul had grown too. He knew he could overcome storms, find his way in the darkness, and save his friends. When spring came and it was time to return north, home, Rio would no longer fly in the middle of the flock among the protected ones. He went to Captain Wing. "I am ready, Captain," he said. "This time, I want to fly in the front, among those who face the wind." Captain Wing smiled. "Take your place, young traveler. The sky awaits you." And Rio took off with those magnificent pink wings. He was now a part of the sky. A brave traveler carrying both the warmth of the south and the wind of the north on his wings. The end.